Imagine a world where the very ground beneath your feet is paved with sun-bright metal, and distant mountains breathe the warm scent of ancient wealth. For 5 centuries, the whisper of El Dorado has drifted through taverns, palaces, and jungle camps alike. A soft siren song that drew thousands of souls into the emerald abyss of the Amazon, only to be swallowed by the silent, watching green. They went in search of a city of gold. But what they found was fever, silence, and minds slowly unraveling in the heat. Maps dissolved in the rain, compasses turned useless among the trees, and names were quietly erased by the river's slow breath. Tonight, as the world around you grows darker and still, we will gently pierce the veil of this forbidden jungle. Not with shouting or gunfire, but with soft footsteps and a quiet lantern of history in our hands. Because El Dorado was never just a place. It was a ghost of an idea, a shining mirage that bent the fate of 2 worlds at once. Together, we will follow the fading footprints of conquistadors and dreamers, trace their hopes along overgrown paths, and listen for the echo of a city that may never have existed, yet shaped everything it touched. If you are ready to drift into the heart of this great mystery, stay close. Breathe slowly. The green labyrinth is opening around you now, and its oldest secrets are finally beginning to rise to the surface. The story of El Dorado is perhaps the greatest archaeological ghost story ever told. It is a tale that began as a faint whisper in the dusty ports of the Caribbean, and slowly grew into a quiet obsession that would redraw the maps of an entire continent. For the European mind of the 16th century, the New World was not just a land of discovery. It was a canvas for their most feverish dreams of wealth and power. They arrived with steel in their hands and a deep hunger in their hearts. Listening to the fragile tales of indigenous captives who spoke of a Gilded One living somewhere high in the clouds. In their imagination, this figure became the ruler of a literal city of gold. A place called Manoa, where the walls seemed to shimmer, and the people lived in a state of endless, effortless luxury. But as we slowly peel back the layers of time and legend, we find that the truth behind El Dorado is far more complex than a simple mountain of treasure. It is a story of projection and longing, of environmental mystery, and of a sophisticated world that the modern age is only now beginning to understand. To approach this mystery, we must first feel the quiet shock of the Amazon itself. To the first explorers, this was the green hell. A vast, seemingly impenetrable labyrinth of towering trees, coiled shadows, and illnesses that could quietly drain a man's spirit long before they claimed his body. The scale of the Amazon basin is overwhelming. Millions of square miles of dense forest where sunlight rarely touches the ground. In this twilight world, where every step is a slow struggle against roots, mud, and vines, the mind begins to play gentle tricks. The glint of a wet leaf becomes the sparkle of an emerald. The yellow of a distant bird's wing becomes the brief flash of a golden coin. This shared daydream was fueled by the very real wealth of the Aztec and Inca empires. If Mexico and Peru were filled with gold, why wouldn't the deeper jungle hide an even greater prize? This quiet logic drew men like Gonzalo Pizarro and Francisco de Orellana ever further into the green maze, driving them to acts of astonishing courage and quiet brutality, all in pursuit of a shadow that kept slipping away. But the mystery deepens when we turn our attention to the people who were already there. For the indigenous cultures of the Amazon and the Andes, gold was not money, it was a sacred substance. They called it the sweat of the sun, a material used to catch the light of the divine and send it gently back to the heavens. Their ceremonies were not about personal riches, they were about maintaining balance in the universe. When the Spanish demanded to know where the gold came from, the natives often pointed deeper into the jungle. Perhaps they hoped the invaders would disappear into the forest and never return. Or perhaps they were quietly referring to a spiritual center, a place that could not be mapped by European eyes. This deep misunderstanding created a slow collision of worlds, and the jungle floor was left scattered with unmarked bones. Yet through all of this, the legend of the lost city itself remained untouched, floating just out of reach. Now modern science is offering the most surprising turn in this 500-year-old story. For generations, scholars believed the Amazon was a pristine wilderness, too fragile, too poor in nutrients to support large populations. But new technologies like LIDAR and satellite mapping are revealing a different picture, one that quietly echoes the old tales. Beneath the endless canopy, researchers are finding vast earthworks, circular plazas, and long, straight roads, all suggesting that the Amazon once cradled millions of people. These were the lost cities the explorers were chasing. They were not made of solid gold. They were built from earth and wood, and from a profound understanding of the forest itself. A grand civilization had already risen and faded here, long before the first European ship touched the shore. As we stand at the threshold of this investigation, we begin to see the dual nature of El Dorado. It is both a place and a state of mind. It is the memory of a golden age, undone by the very hands that tried to seize it. The deep green silence of the rainforest still holds the echoes of those who walked into the darkness in search of a glittering lie, and stepped unknowingly over the greatest truth nature ever concealed. Every vine-covered stone, every mysterious earthwork, is a page from a forgotten book, a book that tells of a humanity once living in delicate balance with the most powerful forest on Earth. The hunt for El Dorado is no longer a search for metal. It is a quiet attempt to reclaim a missing chapter of who we are. And as we move deeper into the green labyrinth together, the shadows begin to soften and speak, whispering of a glory that was never meant to be owned, only remembered in the deep, green silence of the lost world. To find the true heart of the El Dorado legend, we must leave the steam-filled lowlands of the Amazon and climb high into the jagged peaks of the Colombian Andes. Here, amidst the thin air and the perpetual mist of the cloud forests, lived a civilization that held a secret far more profound than the European mind could ever grasp. They were the Muisca, a sophisticated confederation of people who did not see gold as a measure of wealth, but as a bridge to the divine. While the world remembers the name El Dorado as a city of glittering towers, the Muisca knew it as a person, a living ritual that combined the fire of the sun with the deep blue silence of a sacred mountain lake. The Muisca were part of the larger Chibcha-speaking family, a society of master farmers, weavers, and above all, alchemists of the soul. They lived in a world of duality, where the high mountain peaks touched the heavens and the deep alpine lakes served as portals to the underworld. In their eyes, the universe was a delicate balance of forces, and gold was the only material capable of capturing the celestial energy of the sun god, Soe. They did not mine gold to build statues of themselves or to hoard in vaults, but to offer it back to the earth in a cycle of eternal gratitude. This spiritual economy was the foundation of their power, and it reached its most spectacular expression at the shores of Lake Guatavita. A perfectly circular crater like that was believed to be a fallen star or a tear from the moon. The ritual of the Gilded Man was the ultimate act of Muisca devotion. When a new leader, or Zipa, was to be crowned, the entire nation gathered on the rim of the crater under the deep blue shadow of the night sky. The air was thick with the scent of burning resins and the low drone of conch shells. The candidate was taken to the shore, where his body was anointed with sticky gums and resins. Then, with a precision that bordered on the miraculous, he was covered from head to toe in fine gold dust. In the moonlight, he did not look like a man, but like a radiant statue of light, a living embodiment of the sun itself. He would step onto a raft made of reeds, surrounded by 4 high priests who carried piles of emeralds and intricate gold offerings called Tunjos. As the raft drifted into the silent, indigo center of Lake Guatavita, the tension of the thousands watching from the ridges became a collective prayer. In a single, breathtaking moment, the gilded man would dive into the freezing blue water, washing the gold from his skin and letting it sink into the dark silt of the lake floor, while the priests cast the gems and golden idols into the depths. This was not an act of waste, but an act of renewal. By giving the gold back to the water, the Muisca were ensuring the continued life of the sun and the fertility of the earth. To them, the treasure was not lost in the lake. It was exactly where it belonged, in the sacred embrace of the goddess. The tragedy of the El Dorado mystery is that the Spanish conquerors arrived just as the memory of these rituals was beginning to fade. They captured Muisca elders and tortured them for the location of the city. But the elders spoke only of the lake and the man covered in dust. The Europeans could not believe that such a vast amount of gold was simply thrown away into the water. Their minds, twisted by the hunger for currency, transformed the gilded man into a gilded city, imagining that if one man could be covered in gold, then surely an entire civilization lived in palaces of bullion. This fundamental mistranslation was the spark that ignited 500 years of searching and suffering. The Muisca provided the seed of truth, but the greed of the old world turned it into a lethal hallucination. As we look down into the dark blue waters of Lake Guatavita today, we realize that the true treasure was never the metal itself, but the wisdom of a people who knew that the most valuable things on earth are those we are willing to give back to the divine. The lake remains a silent witness to a time when gold was a language of the spirit, and when a man could become the sun for a single, shining moment before returning to the blue silence of the mountains. The ritual of the Muisca is the key that unlocks the door to El Dorado, a door that leads not to a vault of coins, but to a deeper understanding of our connection to the earth and the mysteries of the high Andes. High in the eastern range of the Andes, hidden away from the prying eyes of the world, lies a body of water that has inspired more greed, more bloodshed, and more engineering madness than any other place on Earth. Lake Guatavita. To the casual observer, it is merely a small, tranquil pool nestled in a volcanic crater. But to the treasure hunters who have haunted its shores for centuries, it is the world's most valuable vault. A natural sinkhole that holds a fortune in gold and emeralds estimated to be worth billions of dollars. This is not a city of gold built by hands. It is a sacred abyss that swallowed the wealth of an entire civilization, and it has spent 500 years defying every attempt to reclaim its secrets. The legend of the lake's treasure is not just a story. It is a matter of historical record. When the Spanish conquistadors first learned of the Muisca rituals, they didn't just listen. They acted with a brutal and relentless efficiency. They realized that if every king had been anointed in gold and every ceremony ended with offerings cast into the depths, then the silt at the bottom of Guatavita must be a literal carpet of bullion. Thus began a series of desperate and deadly attempts to drain the lake, a task that would prove to be as impossible as catching the moon in a net. The first attempt was led by Hernán Pérez de Quesada in 1545, using nothing but a line of workers with gourds to scoop out the water. After 3 months of grueling labor, the water level dropped by 10 feet, revealing a handful of gold trinkets. Enough to prove the legend was real, but far too little to satisfy the hunger of the crown. 40 years later, a merchant named Antonio de Sepulveda took the ambition to a terrifying new level. He employed thousands of indigenous laborers to cut a massive V into the rim of the crater, attempting to let the water pour out into the valley below. The notch still stands today as a jagged scar on the landscape, a monument to human obsession. As the water level plummeted by 60 feet, the lake began to surrender its treasures. Massive emeralds and intricate golden pectorals were pulled from the mud, but the pressure of the surrounding earth became too great. The walls of the crater collapsed, burying the workers and the treasure beneath millions of tons of mud and stone. The lake reclaimed its own, and the golden dream was once again buried in the dark blue silence. In the centuries that followed, the attempts never stopped. From British mining companies in the 1800s to modern explorers using steam pumps and heavy machinery, the story remained the same. Every time the water was lowered, the mud at the bottom turned into a thick, concrete-like sludge that hardened instantly in the sun, trapping the gold in a natural sarcophagus. The lake seemed to be protected by a divine force, or perhaps by the sheer weight of the sacrifices it had accepted. Some researchers believe that the most valuable pieces, the legendary golden raft and the statues of the sun gods, lie at the very center, where the water is deepest and the indigo shadows are most impenetrable. The estimated value of these offerings remains a subject of intense speculation, with figures reaching into the billions, making Guatavita the most expensive square mile of water on the planet. Today, Lake Guatavita is a protected site, a place where the search for gold has finally been replaced by the search for understanding. The dark blue water is no longer a target for pumps and shovels, but a mirror reflecting the sky of the Andes. However, the mystery remains. Beneath that calm surface, hidden under layers of ancient silt and the ghosts of the workers who died seeking it, the treasure of the Muisca still rests. It is a reminder that some things are not meant to be possessed, and that El Dorado was never a place we were supposed to find, but a sanctuary that nature has vowed to protect. The gold is still there, vibrating in the deep blue silence, a billion-dollar secret held by a mountain lake that refuses to be conquered. In the echoes of history, the name El Dorado has become synonymous with lost cities and unimaginable wealth. But before it was a place on a map, it was a person, a singular figure whose existence blurred the line between the human and the divine. This was the Qhapaq, the sovereign of the Muisca people, known to the early Spanish explorers as El Hombre Dorado, the Gilded Man. To understand the birth of the legend, we must look past the gold itself and into the heart of a ritual that transformed a mortal leader into a living vessel of the sun. It was a ceremony born in the high, indigo-tinted nights of the Andes, where the cold wind whispers secrets of a time when men believed they could harness the very light of the heavens. The transformation of the Gilded King was a masterpiece of spiritual alchemy. On the eve of his coronation, the Qhapaq would be taken into the deep blue shadows of a sacred sanctuary. His body was first anointed with a thick, fragrant resin extracted from the holy trees of the high forest. Then, in a process that looked like a magical incantation, his priests would use hollow reeds to blow clouds of fine gold dust over every inch of his skin. In the dim light of the indigo twilight, he would slowly emerge as a radiant statue, a man made of sun-bright metal who appeared to be burning with a cold, internal fire. To his people, he was no longer a man of flesh and bone, but a reflection of the sun god himself, walking upon the earth to ensure the balance of the world. This was the image that first reached the ears of the Spanish conquerors. They heard stories of a king so wealthy that he threw away gold every day and covered his body in it as if it were common dust. But the Europeans, blinded by their own hunger for coin, suffered a profound failure of the imagination. They could not comprehend a ritual where gold was a temporary costume for a spiritual event. In their minds, if a man was covered in gold, then the land he ruled must be paved with it. They took the title El Dorado and applied it to a kingdom that did not exist. A city of golden walls and emerald gates hidden somewhere in the deep green silence of the jungle. The Gilded Man was real, but the Gilded City was a hallucination born from a collision of cultures that could not speak the same spiritual language. The psychological power of the Gilded King legend was so immense that it drove men to madness. They followed the ghost of this man through the most hostile terrain on Earth, always believing he was just over the next mountain or across the next river. They searched for the source of his dust, the mines that could produce such infinite wealth, but they never found the Zipa or his capital. The Muisca leaders were eventually conquered, their rituals suppressed, and their gold melted into bars to be shipped across the ocean. But the legend of the Man of Gold refused to die. It decoupled itself from the actual history of the Andes and drifted into the Amazon, growing larger and more fantastic with every telling. As we look back at the origin of this myth, we see a tragic irony. The true El Dorado was a man who gave gold back to the earth, while those who hunted him were men who would tear the earth apart to take it. The Gilded King remains a haunting figure in our collective memory. A glowing phantom standing on a reed raft in the middle of a dark blue lake, offering his treasures to the abyss. He is the reminder that some wealth is meant to be sacred, not stolen, and that the true legend of El Dorado began not with the discovery of a city, but with the sight of a single man shining like a star in the deep, blue silence of the ancient world. In the year 1537, a sound that had never been heard in the high altitudes of the Andes began to echo through the mountain passes, the rhythmic clanking of steel against stone, and the heavy breathing of men driven by a fever that no medicine could cure. This was the arrival of Gonzalo Jimenez de Quesada and his small army of Spanish conquistadors. They had marched from the Caribbean coast through the green hell of the lowlands, losing hundreds of men to hunger, jaguars, and the silent arrows of the forest. By the time they reached the emerald plateaus of the Muisca people, the survivors were ghosts of men, but their eyes still burned with the cold light of obsession. They were the first Europeans to set foot in the realm of the Gilded King, and they brought with them a darkness that would forever change the destiny of the New World. The encounter between the Spanish and the Muisca was not a meeting of civilizations. It was a collision of incompatible realities. To the Muisca, gold was a holy substance, a way to reflect the light of the sun and maintain the balance of the universe. To the conquistadors, gold was a commodity, a means to pay off debts, buy titles, and fund the ambitions of a distant crown. As they moved through the high indigo valleys, the Spanish were shocked not by the military power of the Muisca, but by the sheer abundance of metal. They saw golden sun discs hanging from temple eaves and intricate figures adorning the bodies of the priests. They mistook a spiritual sanctuary for a treasury, and they began a systematic campaign of looting that would leave the ancient temples in ruins and the sacred groves silent. The destruction of the Muisca Empire was swift and devastating. The Zipa and the Zac, the supreme leaders of the Confederation, could not comprehend the nature of their invaders. They offered the Spanish gifts of gold and emeralds as tokens of peace, hoping to satisfy what they believed was a temporary hunger. But for the conquistadors, every gift was merely a clue, a breadcrumb leading them deeper into a labyrinth of greed. They tortured the elders and executed the nobles, demanding to know the location of the legendary Manoa and the mines from which the gold flowed. The Muisca spoke of the sacred rituals at Lake Guatavita, but the Spanish wanted more than a ritual. They wanted the source of the sun itself. In their desperation, the conquistadors began to melt down thousands of years of art and history, turning sacred Tunjos into nameless gold bars, erasing a culture's soul to fill a king's coffers. This was the moment the mal de oro, the gold sickness, truly took hold of history. The fall of the Muisca provided the first concrete evidence that the legend of El Dorado might be real, but it also ensured that the truth would be buried forever. By destroying the very people who held the secrets of the Gilded Man, the Spanish turned a local tradition into a global myth. As the last of the Muisca temples burned under the cold blue stars of the Andes, the survivors fled into the deep green silence of the Amazon, taking their remaining treasures and their forbidden knowledge with them. The conquistadors had won the gold, but they had lost the map, and they would spend the next 3 centuries wandering the jungle in search of a ghost they had already helped to kill. The legacy of the conquest is a haunting reminder of the cost of obsession. The emerald plateaus that once rang with the songs of the sun god were left desolate, and the golden artifacts that had been crafted with such devotion were reduced to currency for a dying empire. As we look across the Indigo peaks today, we see the shadows of those ironclad men still haunting the passes. A testament to a thirst that could never be quenched, El Dorado was no longer a person or a ritual. It had become a curse, a shimmering mirage of wealth that would lead thousands more into the dark blue embrace of the jungle, searching for a glory that had vanished the moment the first Spaniard touched the sacred gold. In the year 1541, the fever of El Dorado reached a breaking point that would lead to one of the most harrowing chapters in the history of exploration. Gonzalo Pizarro, the younger brother of the man who conquered the Inca, looked eastward from the high peaks of Quito toward the endless sea of green that stretched to the horizon. He did not see a forest. He saw a golden kingdom waiting to be claimed. With a massive force of 300 Spanish soldiers, 4,000 indigenous porters, and hundreds of hunting dogs, Pizarro descended into the Amazon basin in search of the legendary land of cinnamon and the golden city of Manoa. It was an expedition born of supreme arrogance, but it would soon transform into a waking nightmare that would descend into the deep blue shadows of the abyss. As the expedition left the cool heights of the Andes and entered the humid lowlands, the jungle began to close in like a living trap. The green hell did not fight them with armies, but with the slow, relentless weight of nature. Torrential rains turned the earth into a thick, indigo-colored sludge that swallowed their horses and rusted their armor. The canopy above was so thick that the sun became a distant memory, leaving the men to wander in a perpetual twilight of deep teal and navy blue. Hunger became a constant companion as their supplies rotted in the damp heat. They were forced to eat their hunting dogs, their horses, and eventually, the leather of their own saddles and boots. The gold they sought was nowhere to be found. Only the endless drip of water and the terrifying silence of a forest that seemed to be watching their every move. The psychological toll was even greater than the physical suffering. In the deep blue darkness of the jungle nights, the men began to see visions of the Gilded King mocking them from the shadows. The indigenous porters, dying by the hundreds from exhaustion and disease, spoke of spirits that guarded the heart of the forest. Pizarro, once a proud conqueror, became a desperate man presiding over a funeral march. Every step eastward was a step deeper into a labyrinth with no exit. They reached the banks of the Coca River, a churning torrent of dark blue water that blocked their path. It was here that Pizarro made a fateful decision. He ordered the construction of a small vessel, the San Pedro, and sent his lieutenant Francisco de Orellana ahead to find food. It was the last time the two groups would see each other in the jungle, and the moment the expedition truly broke apart, while Orellana drifted away into history. Pizarro and his remaining men were left to rot in the mud. They spent months waiting for a rescue that never came, surrounded by the bones of their companions and the indifferent beauty of the rainforest. When Pizarro finally realized that Orellana would not return, he began a desperate retreat back toward the Andes. Of the thousands who had marched out of Quito with dreams of golden palaces, Only 80 shattered ghosts of men eventually crawled back into the city. They were unrecognizable, their skin turned a sickly indigo by fever and their eyes hollowed out by the horrors they had witnessed. They had found no gold, no cinnamon, and no glory, only a deep, dark, blue realization of the jungle's absolute power. The nightmare of Gonzalo Pizarro stands as a grim monument to the price of greed. It proved that the Amazon was not a prize to be won, but a force to be respected. The expedition did not find El Dorado, but it discovered the true nature of the Green Labyrinth, a place where the dreams of men go to die in the shadows. As we look at the dark blue maps of the Amazon today, we can still see the path of Pizarro's failure, a trail of rusted steel and broken spirits buried beneath the vines. The nightmare was over for the survivors, but the legend of the Golden City remained, stronger than ever, waiting for the next victim to step into the indigo mist of the unknown, in the deep, green silence of the ancient world. While Gonzalo Pizarro was left to rot in the mud of the Andes foothills, a different and perhaps more miraculous destiny was unfolding for his lieutenant, Francisco de Orellana. In December 1541, Orellana boarded a crudely built brigantine with 60 men, intending only to sail downstream for a few days to find food and return. But the current of the Coca River was a hungry and relentless force of deep blue power. It pulled them away from their companions and into a world that no European had ever witnessed. They soon realized that the river was a one-way road into the heart of a continent. Returning against such a tide was impossible. And so, driven by a mix of desperation and the lingering fever of El Dorado, Orellana turned his prow toward the unknown, embarking on a journey that would result in the accidental discovery of the largest river system on Earth. The voyage of Orellana was a descent into a liquid labyrinth that seemed to have no end. As the Coca joined the Napo and eventually the Solimos, the river widened until the distant banks became mere thin lines of dark teal on the horizon. This was the Great River of the Amazons, a body of water so vast that the Spanish began to call it the Sea River. In the deep blue silence of their drift, the men witnessed things that challenged their understanding of reality. They saw civilizations that modern history once claimed never existed. Orellana's chronicler, the friar Gaspar de Carvajal, recorded seeing massive walled cities stretching for leagues along the riverbanks, filled with thousands of people and guarded by warriors who fought with a discipline that rivaled the armies of Europe. To the hungry eyes of the Spanish, every white-plastered wall looked like a potential palace of gold, every distant temple a treasury of the Gilded King. One of the most famous encounters occurred deep in the indigo heart of the jungle, where the Spanish claimed to have been attacked by a tribe of fierce female warriors. Carvajal described them as tall, fair-skinned women who fought with incredible strength and led the local tribes into battle. It was from these Amazon warriors, reminiscent of the Greek myths, that the river would eventually take its name. Whether these women were real or a product of the men's fevered imaginations, the legend added a new layer of mystery to the Green Labyrinth. The expedition was no longer just a search for gold. It was a journey through a living mythology, where the shadows of the trees held secrets that defied the logic of the old world. As they moved closer to the Atlantic, the river became an indigo monster, miles wide and hundreds of feet deep. The Spanish were no longer masters of their fate. They were merely passengers on a colossal force of nature. They suffered through endless attacks from riverborne war canoes, fought off caimans in the dark blue shallows, and nearly succumbed to the relentless humidity that turned their clothing into rags. Yet, Orellana pressed on, fueled by the belief that at the end of this blue road, the kingdom of El Dorado would finally reveal itself. He never found the city of gold, but he found a treasure of a different kind, a geographical revelation that would change the map of the world forever. When Orellana finally reached the mouth of the river and sailed into the Atlantic in August 1542, he had completed one of the most improbable survival stories in human history. He had crossed an entire continent by water, mapping a world that was previously a blank space of dark blue mystery. He returned to Spain not with bars of gold, but with tales of a vast, populated empire hidden in the trees, tales that the world would largely dismiss as the lies of a desperate man for the next 4 centuries. Orellana would eventually return to the Amazon to find his golden city, only to be swallowed by the river he discovered, leaving his name and his dreams buried in the deep, green silence of the water. Today, as we look at the swirling indigo currents of the Amazon from above, we see the ghost of Orellana's brigantine still drifting in the mist. He was the man who hunted for a myth and found a reality so grand that humanity wasn't yet ready to believe it. The gold of El Dorado remained hidden, but the sea river had been conquered, and the door to the heart of the world had been kicked open. Orellana's legacy is a reminder that sometimes the greatest discoveries are made when we are lost in the search for something that doesn't exist, and that the deep blue heart of the Amazon holds more wonders than any vault of gold could ever contain. The Amazon is not merely a forest. It is a colossal, breathing organism that possesses its own laws and its own hunger. To the conquistadors and the Victorian explorers who followed in their wake, it was known by a single, terrifying name: the Green Hell. It is a place where the concept of time dissolves into a thick, humid indigo mist, and where the line between the living and the dead is as thin as a jungle vine. Every explorer who stepped into this emerald abyss with dreams of golden cities soon realized that they were not the hunters. They were the prey, and the jungle was a master of the long, slow kill. The first weapon of the Green Hell is the canopy itself. A ceiling of leaves so dense that it traps the heat and moisture in a perpetual, stagnant embrace. On the jungle floor, the light is filtered through layers of dark teal and navy shadows, creating a world of eternal twilight. Sunlight is a luxury that the forest does not share. For a man born under the open skies of Europe, this lack of horizon is the first step toward madness. In the deep blue silence of the interior, the senses begin to fail. Distances become impossible to judge. Every direction looks the same, and the constant, deafening roar of a million insects creates a psychological pressure that can break even the strongest will. You are never alone in the Amazon, yet you are more isolated than if you were adrift in the middle of the ocean. Then comes the biological warfare of the wilderness. The explorers were not just fighting hostile tribes or wild beasts. They were fighting invisible enemies that lived in the water and the air. Malaria, yellow fever, and the horrific infections that rotted the skin were the true guardians of El Dorado. In the damp, blue-tinted heat, even a small scratch could become a death sentence. The conquistadors' heavy steel armor, designed for the open plains of Spain, became a steaming oven that cooked them alive and provided a breeding ground for fungus and parasites. They were trapped in their own technology, sinking into the indigo mud as the jungle literally began to consume them from the outside in. The Amazon also possesses a strange, spiritual hostility. The indigenous people speak of forest spirits that lead travelers astray, but for the Europeans, the curse was their own greed. They were looking for a world of gold in a world that was fundamentally green and blue. This visual and spiritual mismatch created a form of sensory vertigo. They walked past ancient stone ruins and advanced agricultural works without seeing them, because they were looking for the glint of metal that wasn't there. The Green Hell swallowed them because they refused to speak its language. They tried to conquer a force that can only be understood through surrender. As we look at the skeletons of the expeditions that still lie buried under the vines, we see the ultimate victory of the forest. The Amazon does not hate humanity. It is simply indifferent to it. It is a green labyrinth designed to protect its own secrets, using the dark blue water and the suffocating mist as a shroud. Every explorer who vanished into the shadows of the Xingu or the Tapajos became a part of the forest's memory. A ghost forever wandering the indigo twilight in search of a city that was never meant to be found. The green hell remains a formidable barrier between our world and the lost glory of El Dorado, a place where the deep, green, silence is the only answer to the questions of men. As the decades of the 16th century wore on, the search for El Dorado began to warp the minds of those who dared to pursue it. But no story is more terrifying or more representative of this descent into insanity than that of Lope de Aguirre, known to history as El Loco, the Madman. In 1560, a new expedition was launched under the command of Pedro de Ursua, a noble tasked by the Spanish crown to find the legendary kingdom of Amagua and the elusive city of gold. Among the hundreds of soldiers who embarked into the deep green silence was a scarred, limping veteran named Aguirre, a man whose heart held no room for God or king, only an insatiable hunger for power and a mind that was slowly fracturing under the weight of the tropical heat and the indigo shadows of the jungle. The expedition was doomed from the moment it entered the water. As they drifted deeper into the heart of the continent, the vastness of the Amazon began to erode the discipline of the men. The heat was a constant pressure, and the dark blue depths of the river seemed to swallow their hope with every passing mile. Aguirre saw his opportunity in the growing despair of his comrades. In a violent explosion of blood and betrayal, he led a mutiny that resulted in the murder of Ursua and his second-in-command. This was not merely a change in leadership. It was a declaration of war against reality itself. Aguirre took command of the Marignones, as his men were called, and forced them to sign a document declaring him the Prince of Liberty and the King of the Terra firm. From the center of the green hell, Aguirre did something unthinkable. He declared a rebellion against King Philip II of Spain, the most powerful monarch on earth. The search for El Dorado became the backdrop for a reign of terror that turned the river red. Aguirre was no longer looking for a city of gold to enrich a crown. He was looking for a throne of his own in the middle of a nightmare. He became convinced that enemies were hiding in every teal shadow and every indigo thicket. One by one, he executed his own soldiers, his priests, and even his closest advisors at the slightest hint of suspicion. The deep blue silence of the jungle was broken only by the sound of his voice screaming commands and the splash of bodies being thrown into the current. He wandered the deck of his barge in a state of high-fevered paranoia, his eyes reflecting the cold light of the stars and the dark. Blue, void of his own soul, Aguirre's journey was a spiral into the abyss. He led his men through the Orinoco River system, leaving a trail of ash and death behind him as they raided indigenous villages and Spanish outposts. He believed that the spirit of El Dorado had chosen him, that he was the only one worthy to rule the Golden Kingdom. But the jungle had other plans. As they reached the coast of Venezuela, his followers began to desert him, terrified by the monster he had become. In his final, most horrific act of madness, Aguirre murdered his own daughter, Elvira, claiming he did so to save her from the hands of his enemies. He was eventually cornered and killed by Spanish forces, but his body was never given a grave. It was dismembered and scattered, as if the world wanted to erase every trace of his existence. The legacy of Lope de Aguirre is the shadow that hangs over every treasure hunter. He proved that the greatest danger in the Amazon is not the snakes, the fevers, or the arrows, but the darkness that lives within the human heart when it is consumed by a myth. Aguirre did not find El Dorado, but he became a part of its curse, a ghost forever drifting down the indigo rivers of our memory, a warning of what happens when the search for gold becomes a search for godhood. In the deep, green silence, his name is still whispered by the wind, a testament to the madness that waits in the heart of the golden dream, where the water is always dark and the shadows are always blue. By the end of the 16th century, the legend of El Dorado had mutated. It was no longer just a story of a gilded man in the Andes. It had become a geopolitical weapon. Spain had grown fat on the gold of the Inca and the Aztec, becoming the dominant superpower of Europe. Yet the English crown, led by Queen Elizabeth I, watched with growing envy. They needed their own empire of gold to challenge Spanish supremacy. Enter Sir Walter Raleigh, poet, soldier, courtier, and a man whose ambition was as vast as the ocean itself. Raleigh was convinced that the Spanish had missed the true prize. He believed the real El Dorado was a vast city called Manoa, hidden not in the mountains, but deep within the unexplored jungles of Guyana, along the banks of the mighty Orinoco River. In 1595, Raleigh launched his first expedition into the indigo heart of the Orinoco Basin. Unlike the brutal marches of Pizarro, Raleigh's approach was one of diplomacy and intellect. He forged alliances with indigenous tribes who hated the Spanish, listening intently to their stories of a great civilization in the interior that possessed so much gold they armored their warriors in plates of the precious metal. Raleigh sailed hundreds of miles up the dark blue currents, enduring the suffocating heat and the constant threat of Spanish ambush. He never found Manoa. But what he brought back to England was perhaps more powerful than actual gold: propaganda. He wrote The Discovery of Guyana, a masterful work of embellishment that described a land of infinite wealth and strange wonders, such as the Yuipanomas, a tribe of headless men with eyes in their chests. Raleigh sold the dream of El Dorado to the English people, turning a mythical city into a national destiny. But the obsession that fueled Raleigh would ultimately consume him. 20 years later, in 1617, an aging and desperate Raleigh, having spent over a decade imprisoned in the Tower of London, convinced King James I to let him lead one final expedition. He promised to find the gold mines of Manoa without attacking Spanish settlements, a promise he knew he could not keep. The voyage was a disaster, tragically painted in shades of deep blue and blood. Raleigh fell ill with fever as his ships reached the Orinoco Delta. His son, Wat Raleigh, led a reckless attack on the Spanish outpost of Santo Tomé and was killed in the skirmish. The expedition collapsed in grief and mutiny. Raleigh returned to England not as a golden hero, but as a broken man carrying the news of his son's death and a war he had started. King James, appeasing the furious Spanish ambassador, ordered Raleigh's execution. On a cold morning in 1618, the man who had dreamed of a golden empire laid his head on the block. Raleigh's quest for Manoa was the definitive end of the Elizabethan age of exploration. He proved that the myth of El Dorado had become a deadly contagion that infected not just individuals, but entire nations. Though he never saw the golden walls he wrote about so eloquently, Raleigh's legacy ensured that the legend would live on in the English imagination for centuries. He moved the location of the dream from the mountains to the jungle and left his own ghost to haunt the dark blue waters of the Orinoco, forever searching for a city built of words and desire, in the deep, green silence of the lost world. Beyond the fevered dreams of the conquistadors, and far away from the blood-soaked battlefields of the conquest, there existed a silent world of fire and precision. This was the heart of the Muisca workshops, where the legendary sweat of the sun was transformed into a language of the spirit. The Muisca were not merely gold seekers. They were perhaps the most sophisticated metallurgists of the ancient Americas. To them, gold was not a hard currency to be hoarded, but a soft, divine medium to be whispered to. Through a secret mastery of heat and alchemy, they created artifacts so intricate that modern jewelers still marvel at their complexity. In the deep blue shadows of their mountain sanctuaries, these masters of the flame worked in a state of meditative silence, turning raw metal into a bridge between the earth and the heavens. The secret to their incredible craftsmanship lay in a unique alloy known as tumbaga, a sophisticated blend of gold, copper, and occasionally silver. This was not a compromise of quality, but a deliberate scientific choice. Tumbaga had a lower melting point than pure gold, allowing the Muisca to cast delicate details that would have been impossible otherwise. But the true magic happened after the casting. Through a process of depletion gilding, the smiths would treat the surface of the alloy with acidic plant juices. This dissolved the copper on the surface, leaving a thin, brilliant layer of pure gold. When polished with sand and obsidian, these objects did not just shine. They emitted a radiant, ethereal glow that seemed to come from within. To the Spanish eyes, it was a clever deception, but to the Muisca, it was the spiritual essence of the metal rising to the surface. The most iconic of their creations were the Tunjos, small, flat votive figures that depicted warriors, mothers, animals, and gods. These were not meant to be displayed in palaces or worn as jewelry. They were letters to the gods. Using the lost wax casting technique, the goldsmiths would first carve the figure in beeswax with microscopic detail, then encase it in clay. When the clay was fired, the wax melted away, leaving a perfect void for the molten gold to fill. No two Tunjos were ever identical. Each was a unique prayer, a specific soul captured in metal. In the indigo twilight of the Andes, thousands of these figures were carried to the sacred lakes and peaks, offered back to the earth in a silent exchange of energy. The level of detail achieved by these ancient smiths is staggering. They could cast golden threads as thin as a human hair and create hollow beads smaller than a grain of sand. They understood the molecular behavior of metals long before the birth of modern chemistry. Their workshops were not places of industry, but places of worship, where the roar of the furnace and the hiss of cooling metal were the only sounds in the deep blue night. They believed that the gold carried the memory of the sun's warmth, and by shaping it, they were helping the sun communicate with the dark blue waters of the mountain lakes. As we examine the few surviving Muisca artifacts in the high-tech museums of today, we are looking at more than just treasure. We are looking at a lost science of the soul. The conquistadors melted down millions of these masterpieces, turning centuries of spiritual art into anonymous bullion. But the few that remain whisper of a world where technology and divinity were one. The gold of the Muisca was never about wealth. It was about the reflection of a higher reality, a golden light that still shines through the dark blue mist of history, reminding us that the true El Dorado was built with the hands of artists and the hearts of believers. In the deep, green silence of the ancient peaks, for centuries, the scientific world viewed the Amazon through a lens of profound skepticism. They believed the great rainforest was a counterfeit paradise, a land where the soil was too poor and the heat too intense to ever support a large, organized civilization. To them, the stories told by Orellana and the legends of El Dorado were nothing but the hallucinations of starving men. But as we move deeper into the 21st century, the Earth itself is beginning to reveal a secret that challenges everything we thought we knew about the human past. Beneath the roots of the towering mahogany trees and the thick layers of decaying leaves lies a mysterious, human-made substance known as Terra Preta, the Amazonian dark earth. This is not just soil. It is a profound piece of biotechnology, a dark blue-black testament to a civilization that did not just inhabit the jungle, but engineered it. The mystery of Terra Preta begins with its color. Unlike the nutrient-poor, reddish-yellow clay that naturally covers much of the Amazon basin, Terra Preta is as dark as the midnight sky. It is a rich, fertile expanse of earth that contains high concentrations of charcoal, animal bones, manure, and millions of ancient pottery shards. For a long time, researchers believed these were natural deposits, but modern chemical analysis has proven that this soil was created by human hands over thousands of years. It was a deliberate act of geoengineering. The ancient inhabitants of the Amazon used slash and smolder techniques to create charcoal, which they then mixed with organic waste to create a soil that could sustain intensive agriculture. In the deep blue silence of the forest floor, this soil acts like a sponge, holding onto nutrients and moisture for centuries, long after the hands that made it have turned to dust. The scale of this discovery is staggering. Surveys have revealed that Terra Preta covers at least 10% of the Amazonian landscape, an area the size of France. To create such vast quantities of fertile earth, the population of the Amazon must have numbered in the millions. This was the true Golden Kingdom, not a city of metal, but a continent of fertile ground that could support massive, interconnected urban centers. The pottery shards found within the soil are not primitive. They are the remains of a sophisticated artistic tradition that stretched across the entire basin. These people were not wandering tribes. They were master farmers and urban planners who understood the secrets of the earth far better than we do today. They turned the green hell into a green heaven through the mastery of the dark blue earth. One of the most haunting qualities of Terra Preta is its ability to regenerate. Local farmers in the Amazon today report that if they remove a layer of this black soil to sell it as fertilizer, it slowly grows back, as if the soil itself is a living organism. It is a carbon-negative technology that scientists are now studying to combat climate change in our own era. The ancient people of El Dorado discovered a way to trap carbon and life within the ground, creating a legacy that continues to thrive 12,000 years later. In the indigo twilight of the forest, this soil still hums with the energy of those who created it, a silent archive of a forgotten greatness. As we map the extent of these dark earth deposits, we are reconstructing the ghost map of a hidden empire. We are realizing that the explorers weren't wrong about seeing great cities. They just didn't realize that the foundation of those cities was beneath their feet. The gold of El Dorado was never meant to be worn. It was meant to be planted. The true wealth of the Amazon was its capacity to sustain life through the dark blue alchemy of the soil. Terra Preta is the ultimate proof that we are walking over a lost world, a world that mastered the art of survival and turned a wilderness into a garden. The mystery of the Black Earth is the final bridge between myth and reality, a dark, deep, blue secret buried in the heart of the green labyrinth. For half a millennium, the Amazon rainforest was considered an impenetrable vault of biological secrets, a place where any trace of a grand civilization would be quickly strangled by vines and dissolved by the relentless humidity. Historians and archaeologists operated under the assumption that the lost city of gold was a purely psychological phenomenon, a ghost chased by men who could not accept the emptiness of the jungle. But in the last decade, a revolutionary technology has fundamentally shattered this narrative. It is called LIDAR, light detection and ranging. By firing millions of laser pulses from aircraft and drones through the thickest canopy, scientists have begun to strip away the green veil of the forest. And what they have found beneath is a reality that exceeds even the wildest dreams of the conquistadors. Imagine looking at a vast, featureless ocean of green, and suddenly seeing it transformed into a complex digital blueprint. The LIDAR sensors do exactly this. They filter out the vegetation and map the contours of the Earth with centimeter-level precision. In regions like the Upano Valley of Ecuador and the Caçara Plains of Bolivia, the deep blue light of the laser has revealed staggering urban landscapes that have been hidden for over 1,000 years. These are not just scattered villages. They are garden cities, massive clusters of residential platforms, ceremonial plazas, and monumental pyramids that are interconnected by a sophisticated network of raised causeways. Some of these roads stretch for tens of miles, straight as an arrow, cutting through the landscape with a geometric precision that mirrors the Roman roads of the Old World. The scale of these discoveries is rewriting the history of humanity in the Americas. In the Llanos de Mojos region, LIDAR has uncovered entire, lost provinces that were once home to millions of people. These ancient Amazonians were not passive inhabitants of the forest. They were master architects of the landscape. They built enormous water management systems, including canals and artificial reservoirs, to control the seasonal floods and sustain vast agricultural fields. In the indigo twilight of the digital scan, we see the outlines of a civilization that was as large and as organized as the Maya or the Aztec, but built with the earth itself rather than stone. This was the true empire of the sun in the lowlands, a society that utilized the very soil of the Amazon to create a sprawling, green metropolis. The most haunting aspect of these LIDAR findings is how they validate the long-dismissed accounts of the early explorers. When Francisco de Orellana spoke of seeing great cities that glistened white and roads that led deep into the interior, he was ridiculed as a liar. Today, the neon blue grids of the laser scans prove that he was telling the truth. He was witnessing the final days of a civilization that was being erased by the diseases brought from the Old World. The lost cities were not made of gold bullion that could be looted. They were made of living infrastructure that has now been reclaimed by the forest. The gold was the people, their knowledge, and their ability to turn a hostile wilderness into a thriving home. As we continue to scan the dark blue reaches of the Amazon basin, more anomalies are emerging every day. Massive geoglyphs, circles, squares, and complex polygons carved into the earth have been found across the Brazilian state of Acre. These structures suggest a ritualistic and astronomical significance that we are only beginning to decode. The jungle is no longer a blank space on the map. It is a crowded archive of human achievement. The deep blue silence of the Amazon is finally being broken by the hum of the laser, and as the green labyrinth yields its secrets, we realize that El Dorado was never a single city. It was an entire continent of civilization waiting for us to find the right light to see it. The truth is no longer hidden. It is glowing in the blue, digital heart of the forest. As the lasers of modern technology peel back the green skin of the Amazon to reveal the bones of a lost civilization, we are forced to confront a question that goes deeper than engineering or agriculture. What was the spiritual fire that fueled such a massive society? To understand the true El Dorado, we must step into the shadows of their temples and decode the symbols of a forgotten faith. A religion of cosmic duality that centered on the eternal dance between the great serpent and the eternal sun. In the deep blue silence of the jungle sanctuaries, the ancient Amazonians practiced a spiritual science that saw the world not as a resource to be exploited, but as a living deity to be harmonized. Their faith was a bridge between the dark waters of the earth and the golden light of the heavens. And it was this belief system that gave birth to the legend of the City of Gold. The serpent was the primary deity of the lowlands, a symbol of the Amazon River itself and the life-giving power of water. To the people of the forest, The river was not just a geographic feature. It was a cosmic snake that flowed through both the physical world and the spiritual underworld. This great serpent was the guardian of the primary force, the energy that allowed the trees to reach for the stars and the soil to remain fertile. In the indigo twilight of the temples, priests would perform rituals to appease this serpent, offering green emeralds and blue-tinted pottery into the dark currents. They believed that if the serpent were ever offended, the rains would stop and the green labyrinth would turn into a desert of dust. The serpent represented the receptive, feminine, and mysterious side of the universe, the deep blue soul of the Amazon. Contrasting the serpent was the sun, the masculine, radiant, and golden power of the sky. Gold was not seen as wealth in this religious context. It was sun-skin, a material form of celestial light. The sun was the source of all order, the architect of the seasons, and the father of the ruling elite. This is why the leaders of the Golden City were so obsessed with the metal. They were not hoarding it to buy goods. They were surrounding themselves with the physical essence of their god. By wearing gold and building sun discs that captured the morning light, the priests believed they were literally grounding the power of the heavens into the soil of the earth. The legend of El Dorado was essentially a description of a society that lived in a state of perpetual solar worship, where the glint of gold was a constant reminder of the divine presence. The intersection of the serpent and the sun was where the true power resided. This was often symbolized by the jaguar, the master of both light and shadow, the hunter who moved between the world of the sun and the world of the dark blue jungle. The shamans of El Dorado were said to possess the ability to shape-shift into these great cats during trance states, traveling through the dimensions to consult with the ancestors. These forbidden rituals often took place in hidden chambers beneath the earth, where the indigo shadows were thickest and the connection to the serpent was strongest. Here, they would use sacred plants to open their inner sun, perceiving the golden grids of energy that connected all living things. To the Spanish conquerors, these practices were works of the devil, but to the people of the Amazon, they were the ultimate science of survival and connection. As we examine the ruins found under the canopy, we see that the entire urban layout of these lost cities was an architectural prayer. The pyramids were aligned with the movements of the sun and the moon, and the great canals were designed to mimic the coils of the serpent. This was a civilization that did not build for the sake of ego. They built to mirror the cosmos. The Golden City was actually a sacred city, a place where every stone and every path was part of a grand religious machine designed to keep the human world in sync with the divine rhythm. The tragedy of El Dorado is that the gold was stolen and melted down, but the spiritual wisdom it represented was lost even faster. The gold was just the vessel. The true treasure was the light that lived inside it. The religion of the serpent and the sun remains one of the great unexplored chapters of human history. It was a faith that saw the divine in the deep blue water and the golden light of the canopy. As we stand among the moss-covered ruins today, we can still feel the echo of the ancient chants and the vibration of the great sun discs. The jungle has reclaimed the temples and the vines have choked the altars, but the cosmic duality still exists. The sun still rises over the canopy and the great serpent still flows toward the sea. El Dorado was a dream of gold, but it was built on a foundation of sacred light. A light that still flickers in the deep, green silence of the ancient world, in the long and blood-stained history of the search for El Dorado. No name carries more weight or more mystery than that of Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett, a veteran British artillery officer, a surveyor, and a man who seemed to have stepped out of the pages of an adventure novel. Fawcett became the living bridge between the Victorian age of exploration and the modern era of archaeology. But he was not looking for a city of gold in the way the conquistadors had. He wasn't driven by simple greed. Fawcett was searching for something he called a lost, ancient metropolis that he believed was the cradle of all human civilization. In 1925, he walked into the deep blue shadows of the Mato Grosso region of Brazil and vanished from the face of the earth, leaving behind a mystery that would claim the lives of over 100 rescuers and haunt the scientific world for a century. Fawcett's obsession with City Z was born from his years as a surveyor for the Royal Geographical Society. While mapping the dark blue borders between Bolivia and Brazil, he encountered more than just uncharted rivers. He heard whispers from the indigenous tribes of ruins hidden deep in the interior, stone cities with paved roads and massive walls that predated anything known to history. He discovered ancient pottery shards in places where no one was supposed to have lived, and he read the mysterious Manuscript 512 in a library in Rio de Janeiro, which described a majestic stone city found by Portuguese explorers in the 18th century. Unlike his contemporaries, who viewed the Amazon as a primitive wilderness, Fawcett was convinced that a highly advanced empire had once thrived in the Green Labyrinth, an empire that had survived in isolation, waiting to be found. His final expedition was a journey of absolute commitment. In April 1925, accompanied only by his eldest son Jack and Jack's friend Raleigh, Fawcett set off into the unknown. He traveled light, without the massive armies of the past, believing that a small party was less threatening to the uncontacted tribes. His last letter to his wife, Nina, was sent from a place he named Dead Horse Camp. It was a message of supreme confidence. He told her not to fear failure and warned that if they did not return, no rescue should be attempted. Then, the indigo mist of the Xingu region swallowed them whole. No trace of the men, their equipment, or their journals was ever found. It was as if the jungle had simply opened its mouth and inhaled them into the deep blue silence. The disappearance of Percy Fawcett sparked a global sensation. For decades, rumors drifted out of the jungle like smoke. Some claimed he had gone native and was living as a king in a hidden city. Others believed he had been captured by the Bat People or killed by hostile tribes. Massive rescue missions were launched, but they only added to the tragedy. Men disappeared, died of disease, or were murdered by the very secrets they tried to uncover. The search for Fawcett became a new kind of El Dorado, a hunt not for gold, but for a man who had become a myth. His story inspired the creation of characters like Indiana Jones and the lost world of Arthur Conan Doyle. But the cold reality remained. Fawcett was gone, and City Z remained a shadow on a map of dreams. However, the most shocking part of the Fawcett mystery is the modern revelation. Today, LIDAR and satellite imagery in the very regions Fawcett explored have revealed the presence of Qhapaq, a massive complex of ancient settlements and earthworks that perfectly matches the descriptions of City Z. Fawcett was right. He was standing on the edge of a great discovery, but he was a century too early and lacked the technology to see through the green veil. He didn't find a city of gold, but he found the truth, a truth that cost him his life. As we look at the dark blue canopy of the Mato Grosso today, we realize that Fawcett wasn't a madman. He was a visionary who was consumed by the very history he sought to save. He remains a guardian of the Green Labyrinth, a ghost forever walking the indigo twilight in search of the glory that lies just beyond the next tree, in the deep, green silence of the lost world. In the year 1839, in the silent, dust-choked corridors of the National Library in Rio de Janeiro, a librarian named Joaquim Felicio de Oliveira stumbled upon a document that would reignite the fire of El Dorado for a new generation. It was a tattered, 10-page report buried in the archives for nearly a century, officially titled Historical Relation of an Occult and Large Settlement Without Inhabitants. To the world, it would become known as Manuscript 512. This was not a map of gold mines or a collection of rumors, but a detailed, first-hand account of a group of Portuguese fortune hunters, known as bandeirantes, who claimed to have found a massive stone metropolis deep in the Brazilian interior in the year 1753. In the deep blue silence of the library, this document whispered of a reality that the modern world had long dismissed as a myth. A city of stone that predated the arrival of the Europeans by thousands of years. The story told in Manuscript 512 is as captivating as it is mysterious. The group, led by an unnamed explorer, had been wandering the trackless wilderness of the Bahia region for 10 years in search of the legendary silver mines of Muisca. Just as they were about to turn back in despair, they saw a shimmering light reflecting off a distant mountain range. As they climbed the jagged peaks, they looked down into a valley and saw a sight that froze their blood. A great city of stone was laid out before them, surrounded by massive walls and featuring a triple-arched gateway of staggering scale. The explorers entered the city in a state of awe, walking down wide, paved streets lined with two-story houses and grand temples. They found no living soul. Only the echo of their own footsteps in the indigo twilight of the abandoned plazas. The details recorded in the manuscript are chillingly specific. They described a central square with a black stone column, topped by a statue of a youth pointing towards the north. They saw massive stone arches carved with mysterious hieroglyphics that resembled Greek or Phoenician script. They entered a palace where the walls were decorated with elaborate reliefs, and the furniture was made of heavy, dark wood. Everywhere they looked, they saw evidence of a civilization that had mastered the arts of architecture and urban planning on a level that rivaled the great cities of Europe. This was the primary evidence that drove Percy Fawcett into the jungle 2 centuries later. He was convinced that Manuscript 512 was a literal description of City Z, the cradle of South American history. The document provided the physical blueprints for a dream that had previously been made only of gold. For decades, skeptics have dismissed Manuscript 512 as a forgery or a creative fiction intended to secure government funding. But the tone of the writing is sober, almost clinical in its descriptions. The explorers did not claim to find mountains of gold. They described a city of stone that was slowly being reclaimed by the earth and the vines. They spoke of the blue light that seemed to linger in the abandoned temples and the strange symbols that they could not decode. The manuscript ends abruptly, as the group left the city to continue their search for silver, never to find the ruins again. It remains a ghost in the archives, a singular piece of evidence that suggests a great secret is still hiding in the deep blue shadows of the Brazilian wilderness. Today, Manuscript 512 is protected in a temperature-controlled vault, too fragile to be touched but too powerful to be ignored. It stands as a bridge between the greed of the conquistadors and the scientific curiosity of the modern age. Whether the city it describes actually exists or is a composite of different indigenous sites, it represents the enduring power of the Amazonian mystery. It is a reminder that the Green Labyrinth is a library of stone and memory, and that some books are still waiting to be read. As we gaze upon the faded ink of the document, we can almost hear the wind whistling through those empty stone arches, calling us back to the indigo silence of the lost world, where the truth is written in the shadows, and the gold is only a memory. For 5 centuries, the world has been blinded by the yellow glint of gold, leading armies and dreamers to search for a city of metal in a world that was defined by the power of life. But as we move past the fevered hallucinations of the conquistadors, A new and more profound theory is emerging from the deep blue silence of the Amazonian canopy. What if the true El Dorado was never about bullion or silver? What if the Golden City was actually a metaphor for a biological paradise? A vast, living pharmacy where the ancient people had mastered the secrets of nature to achieve perfect health, longevity, and a profound connection to the cosmic energy. This is the concept of the biological El Dorado, a treasure that is not made of cold metal, but of the warm, vibrating chemistry of the green labyrinth. The Amazon rainforest is the most complex biological laboratory on the planet, containing millions of species of plants and insects that exist nowhere else. The indigenous people did not view this forest as a wilderness to be conquered. They viewed it as a library of life. In the indigo twilight of their forest sanctuaries, shamans and healers developed a sophisticated science of botany that rivaled the modern medicine of today. They identified plants that could stop bleeding instantly, vines that could cure fevers, and mushrooms that could repair the nervous system. To a European explorer in search of gold, a handful of leaves was worthless. But to the people of the sun, those leaves were the key to survival and spiritual power. They had transformed the forest into a curated garden of medicine, a green El Dorado, where the wealth was measured in health and wisdom. One of the most powerful examples of this biological gold is the secret of curare, a complex neurotoxin derived from forest vines that was used for hunting, and today serves as a critical component in modern surgery as a muscle relaxant. Another is the cinchona bark, the source of quinine that once saved the world from malaria. These are just the fragments of a massive body of knowledge that was lost when the civilizations of the Amazon collapsed. The true treasure hunters of today are not looking for gold coins. They are looking for the molecular gold hidden in the DNA of endangered plants. They believe that the cures for the most devastating diseases of our age are still vibrating in the deep blue shadows of the Xingu and the Tapajos, waiting to be rediscovered by those who know how to listen. The spiritual dimension of this biological wealth was even more significant. The use of teacher plants like Ayahuasca allowed the ancient people to enter a state of inner gold, where they perceived the invisible structures of the universe. They believed that the forest was a sentient being that spoke to them through the language of scent and color. In their eyes, the Gilded Man was not just a king covered in dust. He was a human being who had achieved perfect harmony with the biological frequency of the earth. The city of El Dorado was perhaps a community of people who lived in such a high state of biological and spiritual health that they appeared to shine like gold to those who were spiritually blind. The tragedy of the modern era is that we are destroying this biological El Dorado faster than we can map it. Every acre of forest lost to fire and greed is a library burned down, a cure for cancer or a secret of longevity lost forever in the smoke. The true gold was never in the ground. It was in the leaves, the flowers, and the dark blue mist of the canopy. As we stand in the silence of the vanishing forest today, we realize that the greatest treasure of the Amazon was always alive, and its loss is a debt that gold can never pay. The mystery of the biological El Dorado is a call to protect the life that remains, before the green labyrinth becomes a desert of ash, in the deep, green silence of the dying world. As the green veil of the Amazon is pulled back by the cold light of modern science, we are encountering anomalies that challenge our very understanding of the human lineage. Among the most whispered secrets of the rainforest are the accounts of the Amazonian giants, a race of gargantuan humanoids whose skeletal remains have been found in the deepest indigo shadows of the jungle. To the mainstream historian, These are forbidden finds that threaten to shatter the established timeline of the Americas. But to the local tribes and the ghosts of the early explorers, these giants were the true architects of El Dorado, the massive builders who possessed the strength to move mountains of earth and carve the great stone cities out of the primeval wilderness. In the deep blue silence of the forest floor, their bones tell a story of a lost branch of humanity that was as tall as the trees and as powerful as the river itself. The legends of giants in South America are as old as the mountains. From the chronicles of the Spanish, who claim to have seen skeletal remains twice the size of a man in the caves of the Andes, to the oral histories of the Amazonian tribes who speak of the Apu, celestial giants who descended from the stars to seed the first civilization. These stories were long dismissed as folklore until the late 20th and early 21st centuries, when physical evidence began to emerge from the dark blue mud of the jungle. Explorers in the remote Xingu and Ucayali regions reported finding burial mounds containing individuals reaching 7, 8, and even 9 feet in height. These were not isolated cases of gigantism, but entire populations of massive people who lived in sophisticated urban centers long before the arrival of the European world. One of the most profound discoveries occurred in the deep blue canyons of the Brazilian interior, where researchers found fossilized remains with elongated skulls and skeletal structures that suggested a physiology far more robust than that of modern humans. These tall ones were often buried with high-status grave goods, intricate gold ornaments, and blue-tinted obsidian tools that hinted at a connection to the royal houses of the Golden City. Some fringe researchers suggest that these giants were the ruling elite of El Dorado, a master race that utilized their superior size and cognitive abilities to organize the massive geoengineering projects we see today through LIDAR. They were the ones who designed the straight roads and the colossal earthworks that span hundreds of miles, acting as the bridge between the human world and the celestial sun. But where did they go? The tragedy of the Amazonian giants is a narrative of extinction and erasure. It is believed that as the climate shifted and the first waves of foreign diseases arrived, these specialized populations were unable to adapt. Their massive cities became their tombs, and the jungle, with its relentless appetite for decay, began to consume their history. Today, their bones are often found encased in the Terra Preta, or hidden in the dark blue recesses of limestone caves, protected by a natural silence that refuses to give up its dead. To find a giant skeleton in the Amazon is to look into the eyes of a lost future, a reminder that we are not the first masters of this land, and that a greater power once walked beneath the canopy. The mystery of the giants is the final piece of the El Dorado puzzle. It suggests that the Golden City was built for and by people who existed on a different scale than our own. A civilization of giants who lived in harmony with the massive scale of the Amazonian basin. As we examine these controversial remains today, we realize that the green labyrinth is a graveyard of titans, and that the deep, dark, blue silence of the forest is the only monument left to a race that once touched the sky. The giants are gone, but their shadows still loom over the ruins of El Dorado, guarding the secrets of the Sun Empire with their silent, stone-cold presence. While the dreamers and the conquerors spent centuries searching for a city of solid gold with emerald gates, they often walked right over the very treasure they sought. Beneath the dark blue currents of the Amazon and its thousands of tributaries, the Earth is hiding a geological reality that is perhaps more staggering than any legend. The gold of El Dorado was never just a myth. It is a physical part of the landscape. A river of wealth that has been flowing from the high Andes into the deep green basin for millions of years. In the deep blue silence of the riverbeds, The literal veins of the earth have been eroded and washed down into the silt, creating a landscape where the mud itself is laced with the sweat of the sun. The science behind this wealth is as fascinating as the folklore. The Andes Mountains are a massive storehouse of minerals, born from the violent collision of tectonic plates. Over eons, the relentless tropical rains and the churning power of high-altitude streams have ground down the gold-bearing quartz veins, carrying the precious particles down into the lowlands. This is alluvial gold, fine, shimmering dust and smooth nuggets that settle in the bends and deep pools of the rivers. When the early explorers saw the Muisca and other tribes wearing massive gold pectorals, they weren't looking at metal mined from deep shafts. They were looking at the harvest of the rivers. To the indigenous people, the gold was a gift from the water serpent, a material that the river breathed out for them to find. In the modern era, this geological reality has created a new and more desperate kind of El Dorado. In the remote corners of the Brazilian and Peruvian Amazon, tens of thousands of illegal miners, known as garimpeiros, have turned the forest into a scarred landscape of mud and mercury. They hunt for the same blue frequency of gold that obsessed Raleigh and Pizarro, but their tools are high-pressure hoses and toxic chemicals. They have discovered that the lost city is actually a lost layer of earth, a golden sediment buried beneath the roots of the trees. But this modern hunt comes with a terrible price. To separate the gold from the silt, they use mercury, a silver, liquid poison that flows into the dark blue water, killing the fish and poisoning the very lifeblood of the forest. The curse of El Dorado has taken a modern form, where the search for wealth destroys the biological paradise that makes the Amazon unique. As we look at the satellite maps of the Tapajos and the Madeira rivers today, we see the water turning from a deep indigo to a muddy, sickly yellow. This is the visual evidence of the ongoing gold rush, a movement of Earth on a scale that rivals the great cataclysms of the past. The gold is still there, vibrating in the deep blue shadows of the unexplored reaches, but it is protected by the very environment it inhabits. The jungle does not give up its treasures easily. Those who try to take the gold by force often find that the land takes something from them in return. The true mystery of the rivers of wealth is why the ancient people were able to utilize this gold for thousands of years without destroying their world. They understood that the gold belonged to the river, and that to take too much was to offend the great serpent. They lived in a state of sacred extraction, where the metal was a spiritual offering rather than a commercial commodity. As we stand on the banks of a remote Amazonian stream in the indigo twilight, we can still see the pitter-patter of gold dust under the water, shining like a promise from a forgotten age. The wealth is real. The rivers are still flowing with the sun's light, but the secret of how to live with that wealth is a treasure we have yet to rediscover. In the deep, green silence of the golden water, the search for El Dorado did not end with the death of the conquistadors or the disappearance of Percy Fawcett. In the modern era, the siren song of the Golden City continues to lure thousands of individuals into the emerald abyss. But the jungle remains as unforgiving and as jealous of its secrets as it was 500 years ago. There is a phenomenon whispered about in the dusty bars of Manaus and the remote outposts of the Mato Grosso known as the Curse of the Jungle. It is a dark, blue shadow that follows those who enter the forest with greed in their hearts. A sequence of mysterious disappearances, sudden madness, and unexplained deaths that suggest the green labyrinth is actively defending itself against the modern world. For the gold hunters of the 21st century, the treasure is not just guarded by vines and rivers, but by a psychological and biological force that seems to target the very soul of the intruder. The statistics of those who vanish into the deep blue silence of the Amazon are staggering. Every year, dozens of independent miners, researchers, and adventurers walk into the trees and are never heard from again. Unlike the past, these modern explorers carry GPS devices, satellite phones, and high-powered firearms. Yet these tools often prove useless against the primal power of the forest. There are accounts of entire expeditions being found abandoned, their tents standing, their food half-eaten, and their expensive equipment untouched, but with no sign of the humans who occupied them. It is as if they were simply deleted from reality by the indigo mist. Those few who have returned from such encounters often speak of a high-frequency hum that resonates in the deep blue twilight, a sound that causes disorientation, nausea, and a terrifying urge to run deeper into the darkness. The biological reality of the curse is equally chilling. Modern medicine still struggles to categorize the blue fevers that plague those who disturb the ancient earthworks of the Amazon. Scientists have identified rare pathogens and fungal spores that live within the Terra Preta and the hidden caves of the interior. When these sites are excavated by treasure hunters, these dormant organisms are released into the air. The symptoms are not like a normal infection. They often involve vivid hallucinations of golden figures and a profound sense of jungle vertigo, where the victim loses the ability to distinguish between the sky and the forest floor. To the indigenous tribes, these are not diseases, but the protective breath of the ancestors, a spiritual poison designed to drive the unworthy out of the sacred grounds. Beyond the biological and the psychological lies a more visceral danger, the guardians of the gold. In the most remote regions of the Amazon basin, there are still uncontacted tribes who have maintained a vow of silence for centuries. They are the human element of the curse, shadows in the deep blue thickets who move with a silence that defies the modern ear. For a gold hunter using high-pressure hoses to tear apart the riverbanks, the first sign of trouble is often a single, bone-tipped arrow appearing from the teal mist. These tribes do not want gold. They want the sanctity of their world preserved. They are the living memory of the Dorado wars, and to them, every modern intruder is simply another conquistador come to bring death. The curse is often nothing more than the cold, sharp reality of a people who refuse to be discovered. As we examine the rusted remains of modern machinery being swallowed by the vines today, we realize that the curse of El Dorado is actually a conflict of frequencies. The modern world operates at the frequency of extraction and noise, while the Amazon operates at the frequency of the deep blue silence and growth. When these two worlds collide, the forest always wins. The jungle does not need to kill you with a predator. It simply needs to let you get lost in your own obsession. Those who die in search of the gold are not victims of a supernatural spell, but of their own inability to respect the limits of the green labyrinth. The true curse is the belief that everything in the world can be owned. A belief that dissolves in the indigo shadows of the Amazon, leaving nothing behind but the sound of the wind and the eternal drip of the rain. The mysterious deaths and disappearances of modern gold hunters are a warning to the future. They remind us that there are still places on this earth that are forbidden, places where the maps are written in spirit and the treasure is protected by a silence that is 12,000 years old. As the indigo night falls over the canopy once again, the jungle prepares to reclaim another camp, another machine, and another dream. El Dorado remains hidden not because it is a myth, but because the price of entry is a life that the modern world is not yet ready to give. In the deep, dark, blue silence of the ancient world. For nearly 200 years, if you were a sailor, a king, or a scholar in Europe and you opened a map of the South American continent, your eyes would inevitably be drawn to a massive, shimmering body of water in the heart of the Guiana highlands, Lake Parime. And there, on its eastern shore, sat a city of such fabled wealth that it haunted the dreams of empires, Manoa del Dorado. On the maps of Mercator, Hondius, and Sir Walter Raleigh, Manoa was not a myth. It was a fixed point of geography. It was the capital of a golden civilization that had survived the fall of the Incas. Yet, if you look at a map today, the lake is gone. The city has vanished, and the vast region is nothing but a sea of green trees and dark blue rivers. This is the mystery of the city that history erased. A story of how a literal empire became a blank space on the map, and why the blue mirage of Manoa continues to baffle those who study the shifting borders of reality. The rise of Manoa on the world's maps began with the desperation of the Spanish and the ambition of the English. Following the reports of indigenous captives, cartographers began to sketch a giant lake, a sea of the south, where the gold was said to be so abundant that the very sand on the beaches was precious metal. Raleigh's 1595 map solidified this image in the European mind. He described Manoa as the largest city in the world, a place where the sun god was worshipped in temples of solid bullion. For generations, this map was the primary guide for every expedition that entered the Orinoco and the Amazon. They weren't just wandering into the woods, they were looking for a specific coordinate, a blue shore where the gold was waiting. The map was their promise of salvation, but it was a promise written in the shifting ink of hope and hallucination. But as the 18th century dawned, a cold, scientific light began to shine on the green labyrinth. Explorers like the German polymath Alexander von Humboldt began to question the existence of Lake Parime. Humboldt traveled deep into the Qhapaq and the Orinoco, using the latest instruments of the Enlightenment to measure the world. He found that the Great Lake was actually a seasonal phenomenon, a massive flood plain that appeared during the rains and vanished in the dry season. To the indigenous people, this was a natural cycle, but to the European cartographers, it was a catastrophic error. With a few strokes of his pen, Humboldt did what the jungle could not. He killed El Dorado. He erased Lake Parime and Manoa from the official maps of the world, declaring them to be a geographical mirage, a product of mistranslation and the fevered dreams of the conquistadors. However, the disappearance of Manoa from the maps did not mean it never existed. In the deep blue silence of the Guiana highlands today, modern satellite imagery has revealed strange depressions and geological formations that suggest a massive body of water did once occupy the Rupununi savanna. Some researchers believe that a catastrophic geological shift, or a change in the river's course, caused the lake to drain rapidly several hundred years ago, leaving the city of Manoa abandoned and eventually swallowed by the forest. The city didn't just disappear because it was a myth. It disappeared because the environment that sustained it vanished, leaving the survivors to scatter into the indigo shadows of the forest, taking their golden history with them. The erasure of Manoa is a reminder of the fragility of human memory. We believe that what is on the map is the truth, but history shows us that the map is often just a reflection of our desires. Manoa del Dorado was once the most important city in the New World. Now it is a ghost haunting the archives, its location a dark blue void in the center of the continent. The city still exists in the deep, green silence of the Guiana mist, but it no longer answers to the names we gave it. It has returned to the earth. A golden secret hidden in the places where the ink of man has failed to reach, waiting for a new generation to redraw the boundaries of the possible, in the deep, dark, blue, forever, for hundreds of years. The world treated the story of the Gilded Man and the golden raft of Lake Guatavita as nothing more than a colorful piece of South American folklore, a convenient myth used by indigenous people to lead greedy Europeans into the death trap of the jungle. But in 1969, in a small, dusty cave near the village of Pasca, Colombia. A discovery was made that silenced the skeptics and provided the world with its only piece of smoking gun evidence. A local farmer, searching for lost cattle in the indigo shadows of a limestone crevice, stumbled upon a ceramic jar that had been sealed for centuries. Inside, resting in the dark blue silence of the earth, was a miniature masterpiece of ancient metallurgy, the Muisca Raft. This single object, no larger than a human hand, did what 5 centuries of exploration could not. It proved that El Dorado was real. The Muisca Raft is perhaps the most significant archaeological find in the history of the New World. Cast as a single piece using the lost wax technique we explored in earlier chapters, it depicts the exact moment of the coronation ceremony at the heart of the sacred lake. In the center stands the Qhapaq, the gilded king, surrounded by 10 smaller figures, priests wearing feathered headdresses and attendants holding ceremonial banners. The detail is staggering. You can see the individual rushes of the raft, the jewelry on the figures, and the intense, meditative expressions on their faces. It is a time machine made of gold, capturing a ritual that hasn't been performed for over 500 years. In the deep blue light of the museum today, the raft looks less like a piece of jewelry and more like a holy relic, a vibration of the past frozen in sun-bright metal. This artifact changed everything. It provided the physical blueprint that matched the written accounts of the conquistadors. We finally had proof that the Muisca possessed the technology and the wealth to create such things. And more importantly, that they actually performed the ceremony of the Gilded One. The raft suggests that there wasn't just one ceremony, but perhaps hundreds over the generations, each one adding another layer of gold and emeralds to the floor of Lake Guatavita. If a tiny village like Pasca held such a masterpiece, what treasures must still lie in the dark blue silt of the mountain craters? The Muisca Raft didn't just find a treasure, it justified the obsession of every explorer who ever died in the Green Labyrinth. Today, the raft resides in the Museo del Oro in Bogotá, protected by a chamber of shadows and light. It is considered priceless, not for its weight in gold, but for its weight in history. It is the anchor of Colombian identity and the ultimate symbol of the Lost Sun Empire. When people gaze upon it in the indigo twilight of the gallery, they aren't just looking at an artifact, they are looking at the soul of El Dorado. The raft is a reminder that myths are often just memories waiting for the right moment to be rediscovered, and that the gold of the ancestors was never meant to stay in the dark. As we examine the tiny golden figures standing on their eternal raft, we realize that they are still sailing. They are navigating the rivers of time, carrying the secrets of the Muisca across the centuries and into our modern world. The raft is the bridge between the myth and the reality. The golden proof that the Gilded Man once stood in the center of a dark blue lake and offered his spirit to the heavens. The mystery of El Dorado has found its physical heart, and it beats with the steady, radiant light of a gold that can never be melted away. In the deep, green silence of the ancient peaks, while the explorers of the old world exhausted their lives searching for a physical city of stone and metal, the indigenous masters of the Amazon had already discovered a gate to El Dorado that required no travel and no maps. This was the spiritual gate, a threshold crossed not with the feet, but with the soul. In the deep blue silence of the jungle nights, under the shadow of the great canopy, the shamans practiced a sacred alchemy that was far more powerful than the metallurgy of gold. They used the vine of the soul, Ayahuasca, to dissolve the boundaries of the physical world and enter a dimension of pure light and information. For these guardians of the forest, El Dorado was not a destination. It was a frequency, a state of being where the human mind synchronized with the golden grid of the universe. The secret of the shamanic gate lies in the profound synergy of the rainforest's plants. By combining the ayahuasca vine with the leaves of the chacruna plant, the ancient Amazonians created a chemical bridge that allowed the human consciousness to perceive the primary force. In the indigo twilight of their ceremonies, as the sounds of the jungle faded into a high-pitched celestial hum, the shamans would begin to see the world as it truly is, a vibrant tapestry of glowing blue threads and shimmering golden geometries. They spoke of golden cities and crystal palaces that existed in the spaces between the trees, inhabited by light beings who held the secrets of life and death. To the shaman, the gold that the Spanish craved was merely a physical shadow of this divine radiance, a cold, dead metal that could never compare to the living gold of the spirit. This spiritual El Dorado provided the blueprint for the great civilizations we are now discovering through LIDAR. The shamans were the architects who saw the designs in their visions and translated them into the earthworks and roads of the physical world. They believed that the health of the community depended on its alignment with this higher golden dimension. When the Spanish arrived and began their slaughter, the shamans claimed that the true El Dorado retreated into the deep blue mist of the spirit realm, becoming invisible to those whose hearts were heavy with greed. The city didn't vanish because it was destroyed. It vanished because the modern world lost the ability to see it. It became a forbidden territory, guarded by the very plants that granted access to it. In the modern era, thousands of seekers are returning to the Amazon, drawn by the same blue call that haunted the explorers of the past. But they are hunting for a different kind of treasure. They seek the ayahuasca vision, hoping to catch a glimpse of the golden geometry and find the peace that the Sun Empire once possessed. The shaman remains the gatekeeper, the one who knows how to navigate the indigo rivers of the unconscious and return with the medicine of the soul. They remind us that the true gilded man is anyone who has washed away the dust of the material world and revealed the light within. As the smoke of the sacred fire drifts into the dark blue canopy tonight, we realize that the search for El Dorado has always been a spiritual journey disguised as a physical one. The treasure is not buried in the ground. It is vibrating in the silence of the visionary state. The golden city is still there, standing radiant and eternal in the deep blue heart of the forest, waiting for those who are brave enough to close their eyes and look. The gate is open, the vines are calling, and the spirit of the shaman is waiting to lead us home, to the deep, green silence of the living light. In the high, thin air of the Andes Mountains, where the earth touches the stars and the stone breathes the memory of the sun, there exists a feat of engineering that defies the very passage of centuries. A stone ribbon that stretches across the spine of a continent, the Qhapaq. But while the world marvels at the paths leading to the sapphire peaks of Machu Picchu, a far more mysterious network of roads exists. Paths that do not climb toward the heavens, but descend into the deep, indigo. Shadows of the Amazonian abyss. These are the hidden roads of the Anti-Suyu, the secret arteries that once connected the high empire of the sun to the legendary and forbidden realm of El Dorado. In the deep blue silence of the cloud forests, these stones are still there, buried under 500 years of moss and mystery, waiting to tell the story of a connection that history has nearly forgotten. To walk these paths is to walk between worlds, leaving the frozen clarity of the peaks for the humid, dark blue embrace of the infinite green. The Inca were masters of the vertical world. They did not see the jungle as a barrier, but as a source of divine power and infinite spiritual wealth. The road to the eastern quarter of the empire was a descent into a world of vibrant color and dark blue humidity. As the stone steps dropped from the frozen heights of the Parime into the emerald steam of the lowlands, the air changed. The light changed. and the very nature of reality seemed to shift. These roads were built with a surgical precision that mirrors the great temples of Cusco, paved with massive andesite blocks that have resisted the hunger of the roots and the weight of the rains for half a millennium. They were designed for the Chasquis, the fleet-footed imperial messengers who could carry a secret word or a sacred object from the high peaks to the deep teal heart of the forest in a matter of days. Moving like shadows through the indigo mist, they were the pulse of the empire, breathing in the cold air of the mountains and exhaling the damp heat of the jungle. But the true purpose of these hidden roads was far more profound than simple logistics. They were the supply lines for a sacred exchange. From the high Andes came the silver and the fine wool of the Vicuña, and from the deep blue heart of the jungle came the sweat of the sun, the gold and the vibrant feathers of the macaw, the sacred coca leaves, and the exotic medicines of the shamans. The road was a living bridge between two worlds that were spiritually interdependent. To the Inca, the jungle was the Ucupacha, the inner world, the place of origins and ancestral spirits. And the road was the umbilical cord that kept the empire connected to its primeval roots. It was a path of initiation, where the high-altitude priest descended into the dark blue moisture of the forest to learn the secrets of the jaguar and the serpent. This was not just a road for commerce. It was a ritual passage into the heart of the world's mystery. The masonry of these hidden roads is a testament to a philosophy of permanence. Unlike the temporary structures of the lowlands, the Inca brought the stability of the mountains into the chaos of the jungle. They used polygonal masonry, where stones were fitted together so perfectly that not even a blade of grass could pass between them. This wasn't just for aesthetics. It was to create a road that could survive seismic shifts and the relentless erosion of the tropical water. In the deep blue silence of the interior, these roads serve as a physical anchor for the spirit of the empire. They are the evidence that the Golden City was not just a dream of the future, but a reality of the past, built with a precision that we are only now beginning to understand through the cold light of modern technology. Every stone was a prayer to the mountains, every curve of the road a gesture of respect to the flowing rivers below. When the shadows of the conquest fell over Cusco, these roads became the last hope of a dying civilization. Legends tell of a great retreat, where the survivors of the royal lineage and the priests of the sun gathered the most sacred treasures, including the legendary golden sun disk that once lit the center of the Coricancha and vanished down these hidden paths. They fled into the deep blue mist of the interior, heading toward a legendary sanctuary known as Paititi, a city that many believe is the true foundation of the El Dorado myth. They destroyed the bridges behind them and let the jungle reclaim the stone stairs, effectively erasing the trail to their last refuge. Today, as explorers push through the thick teal undergrowth of the Manoa region, they find segments of these roads ending abruptly at the edge of cliffs or disappearing into impenetrable swamps. Shadows of a road that led to a world we can no longer find. The mystery of the hidden Inca road is the mystery of where the gold truly went. Modern archaeologists using satellite imagery and LIDAR are now tracing these lines as they snake through the impenetrable green. They are finding that the Inca influence extended far deeper into the Amazon than any history book ever recorded. The road doesn't just end, it transforms into a ghost of itself, a memory written in stone and earth that points toward the heart of the unknown. It is a reminder that the past is never truly gone. It is just waiting for us to follow the path into the shadows. As the indigo twilight settles over the mist-covered peaks once more, the hidden roads remain silent guardians of the secret. They are the witnesses to the final march of a sun-baked empire into the eternal green. The stones are cold, the vines are heavy, and the destination is still a dream hidden in the clouds. In the deep, green, silence of the ancient world in the final days of the once mighty Inca Empire. As the shadows of the Spanish steel closed in on the last bastions of resistance, a whisper began to circulate through the high, indigo-tinted peaks of the Andes and the dark, humid depths of the Amazonian basin. It was a whisper of a final sanctuary, a city of such splendor and safety that the reach of the conquistadors could never touch its walls. This was Paititi, the legendary last refuge of the Inca kings. While the historical city of Vilcabamba eventually fell to the invaders, the legend of Paititi grew into something far more profound, a phantom city that exists on the razor's edge between history and myth. In the deep blue silence of the unexplored wilderness between Peru and Brazil, it is said that the last of the royal lineage and the keepers of the sacred knowledge fled into the mist, carrying with them the greatest treasures of the Sun Empire, including the fabled golden sun disk that once occupied the heart of Cusco. The mystery of Paititi is not just about gold. It is about the preservation of a civilization's soul. As the Inca elite realized that their world was ending, they did not simply surrender to the inevitable. They moved with a purpose that was both strategic and spiritual. They utilized the secret roads we explored in the previous chapters, leading a massive exodus of priests, architects, and warriors into the deep teal heart of the Mater de Dios region. They chose a location so remote and so protected by the natural geometry of the mountains that it became effectively invisible. Paititi was not built for conquest. It was built for eternity. According to the accounts of the indigenous people who claim to have seen its golden walls, the city is situated in a high valley surrounded by 3 jagged peaks and hidden by a perpetual shroud of indigo clouds. It is a place where the sun still shines on the ancient ceremonies, protected by a barrier of silence that has held firm for over 500 years. The historical evidence for Paititi is a haunting collection of fragments buried in the archives of the Vatican and the Spanish crown. Jesuit missionaries in the 16th and 17th centuries wrote of a great Paititi that lay beyond the reach of the missions, a place where the inhabitants wore fine textiles and used gold as common houseware. They described a kingdom that lived in a state of high civilization, possessing knowledge of the stars and the earth that surpassed the science of Europe. These accounts suggest that Paititi was not just a village, but the capital of a secondary empire that continued to thrive while the rest of the continent burned. In the deep blue shadows of the colonial records, Paititi appears as a constant frustration to the Spanish explorers, a prize that was always just 3 days' journey further into the green labyrinth, yet always out of reach. The geography of Paititi is its ultimate defense. The region where it is suspected to lie, the Pantiacala Plateau, is one of the most hostile and inaccessible places on Earth. It is a world of vertical jungles, where the mountains are so steep that trees grow on top of trees, and the dark blue rivers are prone to sudden, violent floods. The thick teal canopy creates a false floor, making it impossible to see what lies beneath from the air, and the magnetic anomalies of the region interfere with modern navigation equipment. It is as if the Earth itself has formed a pact with the ancestors to keep the city hidden. To search for Paititi is to fight against the very elements, enduring the blue fever of the tropical heat and the psychological weight of a forest that seems to rearrange its paths to lead the intruder astray. For the modern seeker, Paititi has become the ultimate El Dorado. Explorers like the legendary Carlos Neuenschwander and Gregory de Armingian have spent decades combing the indigo mist of the Manu and Mater de Dios regions, uncovering strange geoglyphs and massive stone structures that hint at a profound human presence. They have found the Puchero glyphs, a wall of rock carvings that some believe are maps to the Golden City, but the language of the ancestors remains silent. The mystery of Paititi is a reminder that there are still places on this planet that refuse to be mapped. Places where the past and the present exist in the same dark blue heartbeat. The city is not just a collection of ruins, it is a living ghost, a testament to the fact that the Inca kings never truly died. They simply moved into the deep, green silence of the eternal forest. As we gaze at the mist-covered valleys of the Amazonian borderlands tonight, we can almost hear the echo of the golden trumpets sounding from the high terraces. Paititi remains the guardian of the sun's last light, a shimmering mirage of what was lost and what might still be found. It is the final refuge of hope, a golden secret tucked away in the deep blue folds of the mountains. The kings are still there, and the gold is still bright, and the silence is still absolute, waiting for the day when the world is ready to see the sun rise over the golden walls of Paititi once more. In the deep, dark, blue eternity of the lost world, in the heart of the world's most chaotic wilderness, nature is a master of disguise. For thousands of years, the Amazon has used its relentless growth to hide a secret that challenges the very foundations of human history. Beneath the suffocating layers of emerald vines and the dark blue shadows of the canopy, there exist geometric shadows that should not be there. Massive, symmetrical forms that defy the random patterns of the natural world. These are the Amazonian pyramids, colossal structures built by an unknown hand, using an architectural language that we are only now beginning to decode. In the deep blue silence of the interior, these monuments stand as silent sentinels of a forgotten age, proving that the green hell was once a landscape of monumental order and celestial alignment. The mystery of these structures first reached the modern world not from the ground, but from the heavens. In 1976, satellite photographs of the Madre de Dios region in Peru revealed a series of 8 symmetrical mounds known as the Pyramids of Paratori. At first, scientists dismissed them as natural karst formations, simple hills shaped by erosion. But as explorers pushed through the indigo mist of the valley, they found evidence of a deliberate hand. These mounds were not mere hills. They were organized in a perfect double row, aligned with a precision that suggests an advanced understanding of geometry and astronomy. They are the ghosts of a civilization that built with the earth itself, creating a sacred topography that mirrored the stars above the deep blue forest. But these are not the stone pyramids of Giza or Teotihuacan. The Amazonian pyramids are often earthworks, monumental geoglyphs and platforms that required the movement of millions of tons of soil. In the Brazilian state of Acre, the clearing of the forest for cattle ranching has revealed hundreds of these structures, perfect circles, squares, and octagons etched into the ground on a scale that can only be appreciated from the air. These are the invisible cities of El Dorado, structures that were designed to be part of the forest, not apart from it. Built between 2,000 and 3,000 years ago, they represent a sophisticated level of social organization that historians once thought impossible for the Amazon. In the indigo twilight of the archaeological scan, we see a map of a world where the earth was a canvas for the divine. Who were the builders of these massive works? They are a mystery that remains locked in the dark blue silence of the soil. We find no inscriptions, no statues, no names of kings, only the overwhelming scale of their labor. Some believe they were a master culture that influenced the later civilizations of the Andes, while others suggest they were a unique forest empire that understood how to manage the jungle's ecology to support millions of people. Their pyramids were not just tombs or temples. They were centers of a living landscape, nodes in a vast network of roads and canals that turned the entire Amazon basin into a giant, green machine of survival. The gold they sought was the order they imposed on the chaos of the wilderness. As the modern world continues to strip away the green veil of the forest, more of these structures are emerging from the shadows. Each one is a reminder that our history of the Americas is incomplete. We are walking over the ruins of a greatness we cannot yet name. The Amazonian pyramids are a testament to the fact that the human spirit has always sought to touch the eternal, even in the heart of the most hostile environment on Earth. They remain standing in the deep blue mist, protected by the silence and the vines, waiting for us to finally understand the hands that shaped them. The forest has reclaimed the stone and the earth, but the geometry remains, a golden secret hidden in the dark, blue depths of the ancient world, in the deep, green silence of the lost world, in the fevered imagination of the old world. Gold was the ultimate prize, the singular substance that could buy salvation and secure immortality. But for the ancient civilizations of the Andes and the Amazon, there was another treasure. A stone that captured the very essence of the forest's soul, the emerald. If gold was the sweat of the sun, then the emerald was the frozen light of the earth, a green fire that was as precious as metal and as mysterious as the gods themselves. To understand the true wealth of El Dorado, we must look past the yellow glint of bullion and into the deep, dark green heart of the emerald mines, where the connection between the Sun Empire and the spirit of the jungle was forged in stone. In the deep blue silence of the mountain tunnels, these green gems were the silent witnesses to a spiritual economy that defined the destiny of a continent. The story of the emerald in South America begins in the rugged, indigo-shrouded peaks of what is now Colombia, specifically in the legendary mines of Muisca and Qhapaq. For the Muisca and their neighbors, these were not just holes in the ground, they were sacred wombs of the earth goddess. The emeralds were believed to be the tears of the goddess Fura, shed in grief for her lost love, Tina. These tears of light were harvested with a reverence that the Europeans could never comprehend. The miners would perform rituals of purification before entering the dark blue recesses of the earth, offering prayers to the spirits of the mountains to release the green stones. To find a perfect emerald was to receive a direct message from the divine, a physical manifestation of life and fertility in a world of stone. The emeralds of the Sun Empire were more than just jewelry. They were a currency of the soul. While gold was used to capture the light of the sun, emeralds were used to channel the energy of the earth. The Muisca leaders, the Zipa and the Zak, were often adorned with massive green stones that were said to grant them the power of forest sight, the ability to see through the green veil of the jungle and perceive the movements of enemies and spirits alike. In the coronation ceremony at Lake Guatavita, emeralds were thrown into the dark blue water alongside the gold, representing the balance between the sky and the earth. This was the green connection, the understanding that true power required the harmony of both solar and terrestrial energies. The Conquistadors saw the stones as gems to be sold, but the Muisca saw them as batteries of spiritual power. The quality of Colombian emeralds is unique in the world. They possess a garden of internal inclusions that look like tiny mossy forests trapped within the crystal. To the ancient people, these were not flaws. They were the living spirit of the jungle itself, a piece of the infinite green labyrinth preserved forever in a hard, radiant form. The trade of these stones stretched thousands of miles, from the high Andes down into the deep blue reaches of the Amazon basin and north into the lands of the Maya and the Aztec. The emerald was the diplomatic language of the pre-Columbian world. A gift of a green stone could seal a peace treaty or sanctify a royal marriage. It was the green gold of El Dorado, a treasure that was arguably more valuable and more sought after than the metal itself. The tragedy of the emerald connection is one of violence and erasure. When the Spanish fatahs arrived, they were initially confused by the abundance of green stones. They had never seen emeralds of such size and clarity. They quickly realized that while gold could be melted down into anonymous bars, the emeralds carried a specific identity and a much higher value in the courts of Europe. They seized the mines of Muisca and Qhapaq with a brutality that turned the emerald green rivers red with blood. They enslaved the local populations and forced them into the dark blue depths of the earth to dig for the green fire. Thousands died in the suffocating heat and the collapse of the tunnels, their lives sacrificed for a stone they had once considered holy. The tears of Fura became the tears of a dying civilization. Today, the emerald mines of Colombia remain the most productive on Earth, but the spiritual connection has been severed. The stones are now products of a high-stakes global industry, guarded by soldiers and sold in the sterile light of auction houses in New York and Geneva. Yet, in the deep blue silence of the remote mountain valleys, there are still those who remember the ancient prayers. They believe that the most powerful emeralds are still hidden, protected by the shadows and the ancestors, waiting for a time when humanity will once again value the light of the earth more than the coin of the market. The green connection is still there, vibrating in the silence of the crystals, a reminder that the true El Dorado was a world where even the stones were alive, where the green light of the emerald reflected the eternal soul of the forest. In the deep, green silence of the ancient peaks. In the deep, dark, blue silence of the Amazonian interior, where the roots of the trees grasp at the secrets of the earth and the mist hides the memories of the fallen, there exists a phenomenon that defies the laws of nature and the logic of modern history. Scattered across the forest floor like the discarded marbles of a forgotten god are the Amazonian stone spheres. These are not the jagged, uneven rocks of a mountain slide. They are perfectly sculpted orbs of granite and basalt, ranging from the size of a human heart to the weight of a several-ton monument. Each one is a masterpiece of geometric precision, carved with an accuracy that seems impossible for a culture supposedly devoid of iron tools or complex mathematics. These stone sentinels, half buried in the indigo mud and covered in the glowing teal moss of the centuries, are the silent guardians of a celestial secret, a map of the heavens written in the heavy stone of the earth. The mystery of the spheres is a journey into the heart of the Golden City's scientific mind. For decades, explorers stumbling through the thick undergrowth of the Diquis Delta and the remote reaches of the Amazonian borderlands were baffled by these objects. They are not merely round, they are mathematically perfect spheres. Achieving such a form requires a profound understanding of three-dimensional geometry and a level of patience that transcends the modern concept of time. In the indigo twilight of the jungle sanctuaries, ancient craftsmen would sit in meditative silence, grinding stone against stone for generations to achieve a surface that reflects the curvature of the world itself. To the Muisca and the builders of Preta, these spheres were not just art, they were lithic computers, anchors for the soul that aligned the community with the moving lights of the deep blue sky. The most captivating theory regarding these stone orbs is that they represent a terrestrial galaxy. When researchers began to map the locations of the spheres using the cold light of modern GPS, they discovered a pattern that was far from random. The spheres are often arranged in straight lines, triangles, and complex clusters that mirror the constellations of the Southern Cross and the alignment of the planets during the summer solstice. In the deep blue silence of the ancient world, the forest floor was a mirror of the heavens. The Gilded King did not just look at the stars, he walked among them, using these stone spheres to calculate the arrival of the rains and the timing of the sacred sun rituals. They were the physical hard drive of a civilization that saw no separation between the mud beneath their feet and the stars above their heads. But the spheres also hold a darker, more protective mystery. Many of the orbs are found in places that suggest they were used as territorial markers or spiritual seals. In the indigo shadows of the jungle paths, a traveler would encounter these silent stone faces and know they were entering a sacred geography. Legend tells that the spheres were seeded into the earth to act as resonators, vibrating with the frequency of the great serpent to keep the jungle's energy in balance. When the conquistadors arrived and began to smash the spheres in search of hidden gold inside, a gold that never existed, they didn't just destroy stones, they broke the spiritual grid of the forest. The deep blue silence that followed was the sound of a world losing its connection to the cosmos. A map that had been shattered and buried in the mud. Today, the stone spheres remain one of the most controversial artifacts of the Americas. Some have been moved to the gardens of the wealthy or the sterile halls of museums, but many more remain hidden in the deep blue heart of the unmapped interior. Protected by the vines and the rising silt of the rivers, they are the ultimate evidence that the lost city of gold was actually a city of science, where the true treasure was the knowledge of the universe. To stand before one of these massive orbs in the teal mist of the dawn is to feel the weight of 10,000 years of human ambition. A reminder that we are not the first to look at the dark blue void and try to make sense of the light. The mystery of the spheres is the mystery of El Dorado's mind. A mind that thought in circles rather than lines, and in stones rather than coins. As the indigo night falls over the Amazon once again, the spheres continue their silent vigil. Half sunk in the dark mud, they are still tracking the stars. Still waiting for the hands that carved them to return and read the map one last time. The gold is gone, the temples are in ruins, but the spheres remain a cold, blue, stony testament to a greatness that the forest could never fully consume. In the deep, green silence of the ancient world, in the deep, dark, blue eternity. In the velvet darkness of the Amazonian night, where the air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the heavy blue mist of the canopy, there moves a shadow that is darker than the night itself, a ghost of the forest that possesses the power to freeze the blood of the bravest explorer. This is the black jaguar, the supreme master of the green labyrinth and the legendary guardian of the golden gates. To the modern biologist, it is a melanistic marvel, a rare genetic expression of the feline spirit. But to the ancient civilizations of the Sun Empire, the black jaguar was no mere animal. It was a Manitou, a celestial being that occupied the threshold between the physical world and the indigo void of the afterlife. In the deep blue silence of the jungle paths, the jaguar's eyes are the only lanterns that navigate the secrets of El Dorado. A predator that does not hunt for meat, but for the souls of those who dare to trespass on sacred ground. To understand the mystery of the Golden City, one must first understand the spirit of the jaguar. In the mythologies of the Muisca, the Inca, and the lost tribes of the Xingu, the jaguar was the primary architect of the cosmic balance. It was the Atorongo, the one who could walk in both the world of light and the world of shadow without losing its way. The black jaguar, in particular, was seen as the manifestation of the night sun, the sun as it travels through the underworld during the dark blue hours of the midnight. It was believed that the gates of Preta and Manoa were not guarded by soldiers with spears, but by these spectral cats who could see the intentions of a man's heart before he even stepped into the teal mist. To encounter a black jaguar in the deep blue silence was to stand before the judge of the forest, an entity that demanded respect and a spirit free from the sickness of greed. The connection between the jaguar and the Gilded King was one of profound spiritual mimicry. The Zipa of the Muisca and the Sapa Inca did not just wear jaguar skins as a show of wealth. They believed they were incorporating the feline's power. They practiced a shamanic transformation where their own consciousness would merge with the predator's mind, allowing them to patrol the borders of their empire through the eyes of the black cat. In the indigo twilight of the temples, rituals were performed where the priests would drink the vine of the soul and feel their skin turn to shadow and their teeth turn to stone. They became the jaguar priests, the keepers of the golden gates who ensured that the treasures of the sun remained hidden from those who did not speak the language of the forest. The jaguar was the physical evidence of the biological El Dorado, a creature so perfect and so powerful that it was the only being worthy of standing between the human world and the divine. The geometry of the jaguar is written into the very ruins of the lost cities. Archaeologists have found that the urban layouts of ancient sites in the Madre de Dios region are often shaped to resemble the crouched form of a feline ready to strike. The temples were aligned with the jaguar constellations of the southern sky, and the great stone gates were often carved with the fangs and claws of the Black Guardian. This was a psychological barrier as much as a physical one. An explorer moving through the dark blue shadows of the forest would see the shape of the jaguar in the roots of the trees and the curves of the stones, a constant reminder that they were being watched by an intelligence that was 12,000 years old. The curse of the jungle that we explored in previous chapters was often attributed to the jaguar's breath, a spiritual heaviness that could drive a man to madness if he entered the Golden City with a polluted heart. In the modern era, as the habitat of the jaguar shrinks under the pressure of fire and steel, the spirit of the Black Guardian is retreating into the most remote and inaccessible reaches of the indigo interior. Yet, those who live on the edges of the unmapped wilderness still report seeing the glowing eyes in the dark blue mist. They speak of a massive, black cat that stands at the entrance of hidden canyons and stone arches, disappearing into the shadows the moment it is spotted. These are the sentinels of the end times, the last protectors of the ancient wisdom that El Dorado represents. The jaguar does not need the gold. It protects the gold because the metal is the sun's anchor in the earth. And without the anchor, the world would drift away into the cold blue void. As we listen to the deep, green silence of the Amazonian night tonight, we must realize that the jaguar is still there. It is the rhythm of the forest's heartbeat and the cold blue light in the shadows. It is the reminder that some gates are never meant to be opened, and some treasures are guarded by a power that gold can never buy. The black jaguar remains the eternal watcher of the golden dream, a shadow that moves with the grace of a god and the silence of a ghost, waiting for the day when humanity learns to walk the forest floor with the same respect and the same balance as the masters of the night. In the deep, dark, blue eternity of the spirit world. As the great golden disk of the sun begins its slow, inevitable descent behind the jagged peaks of the Andes, casting its final, amber light over the infinite expanse of the Amazon basin, we are forced to conclude our journey where it began, in the heart of a mystery that refused to be solved. We have traveled through 5 centuries of obsession, followed the rusted tracks of the conquistadors into the green hell, and witnessed the rebirth of a legend through the cold, blue light of modern technology. We have seen the gold of the Muisca, the stone spheres of the hidden cities, and the dark, fertile earth that supported millions of souls in a world we once thought empty. But as the indigo shadows of the twilight deepen once more, a single question remains hanging in the heavy, humid air like a ghost. Why? Why does the name El Dorado still possess the power to move the human heart? Why do we continue to search for a city that has been erased from every map, in a forest that has proven time and again that it does not wish to be found? The answer lies in the fact that El Dorado was never truly about the gold. The yellow metal was merely the catalyst, the physical form of a much deeper human hunger, the hunger for the ultimate elsewhere. For the Spanish, it was a chance at a life beyond the poverty of the old world. For Raleigh, it was the promise of an imperial legacy. And for Percy Fawcett, it was the search for the cradle of humanity. We search for El Dorado because it represents the belief that there is still something miraculous hidden just beyond the next river bend, that there is a place where the rules of the mundane world do not apply, and where the light of the sun is captured in a form that never fades. El Dorado is the eternal sun of our own curiosity, a golden mirage that keeps us moving forward into the dark blue unknown. Without it, the world would be a smaller, colder, and far more predictable place. But perhaps the most profound realization of our journey is that we have been looking at the treasure through the wrong eyes. For 500 years, we defined the wealth of the Amazon by what we could take away from it: the bars of bullion, the bags of emeralds, the hectares of timber. But as we stand in the deep blue silence of the modern era, we are beginning to see that the true El Dorado is the forest itself. It is the biological gold of the thousands of undiscovered species, the scientific gold of the LIDAR grids that reveal our lost history, and the spiritual gold of the tribes who have lived in harmony with the Great Serpent for 12,000 years. The Golden City was not a vault. It was a civilization that understood the secret of sustainability. A world that didn't just inhabit the garden but became a part of its very DNA. The true treasure was never meant to be looted. It was meant to be protected. The search for El Dorado will never end because the forest will never stop creating new mysteries. Every time we think we have mapped the final corner of the Xingu or decoded the last glyph of the Pantiakala, the jungle grows back. The mist returns, and the indigo shadows rearrange themselves into a new puzzle. The Amazon is a living library that we have only just begun to read. And as long as there are stars in the deep blue sky and trees that reach for the sun, there will be dreamers who feel the pull of the golden myth. The legend has evolved from a hunt for metal into a race for preservation. A realization that if we lose the forest, we lose the only place on Earth where the ancient world still breathes, and where the golden dream still has a home. As the last light of the sun fades from the water and the indigo night takes hold of the canopy, we realize that we are all seekers of the light. We all carry a piece of the gilded man within us, a desire to shine in the darkness and find a purpose that is greater than our own brief existence. The story of El Dorado is the story of humanity's relationship with the earth, a cycle of greed, destruction, and finally, a slow, dark, blue awakening to the truth. The city is not lost. It is exactly where it has always been, standing radiant in the silence, protected by the vines and the jaguar, waiting for us to stop being conquerors and start being guardians. The journey is over for tonight, but the dream continues. The rivers will keep flowing with the gold of the silt. The emeralds will keep glowing in the dark blue caves, and the black jaguar will keep his vigil at the hidden gates. The deep, green silence is not an empty void, it is a profound presence, a golden frequency that vibrates in the heart of every living thing. Close your eyes now and let the indigo mist carry you back to the beginning, to the time when the world was new and the sun was a king. El Dorado is not a destination. It is the light that guides us through the dark. Forever, in the deep, dark, blue eternity of the ancient world, sleep now, while the sun remains eternal and the forest keeps its gold, in the deep, green silence of the night.